This was an opportunity of a lifetime for Inquisitor Vey. She straightened her back against the gilded throne normally reserved for the Empress's speaker. She would be the first of the Pan-Galactic Empire's Holy Order to address the humans of Tellus, or Terra, whatever they chose to call their planet of origin this time. She was seated on her side of the desk, an ancient slab of Salite rock, the most rare and exclusive material in the galaxy, held up by 6 legs of an ancient metal whose method of creation had been forgotten nearly 1,000,000 years ago. She slid her gloved fingers upon the stone, taking in the unreal smoothness of the table, with the ancient declaration carefully carved into its surface over the span of 1,000 years, not a single atom out of place, as if the material itself represented perfection. The enormous vault doors, 100 feet high, weighing thousands of tons, groaned as they parted from the ancient mechanism to let the procession in. The human diplomat, a female, was led in by the Inquisition's honor guard. Compared to their gleaming, polished armor, she looked like a street urchin, wearing primitive fabric attire, the thread count laughable compared to any respectable envoy of their respective species. "Sit," she uttered tersely, pointing her carefully trimmed and ring-clad index finger to the seat across the table, a meager, fold-out seat, bought at the price of 12 Imperial credits. A clear and obvious gesture to make whoever sat before the Inquisition realize how below them they were. But the human representative showed no sign of realization, as they simply obeyed the command and sat down, showing no sign of nervousness. But rather a silent and direct obedience. Interesting. Perhaps the humans were of a higher grade of breeding than the reports indicated. She might have whomever submitted the description of them as disrespectful and defiant, flogged for their unprofessional ethics in the craft of data logging. Inquisitor Vey rested her slender fingertips upon the edge of the table and stared the simian straight into her 2 eyes with her own free. "You understand why you are here this day?" she declared. She did not ask. Nobody would be summoned before the Inquisition unless they knew exactly why. "You will, by Imperial law, be granted a chance to explain yourself, followed by a chance to correct yourself," she continued. This too was known. The human representative nodded, a sign of confirmation, agreement and understanding. Good. The human representative, whose name was of no importance to Inquisitor Vey, cleared her throat, a gesture of preparing to speak. Unnecessary, but she did not mind the many strange customs of extraterrestrial species, as long as they cooperated. "Most esteemed Lady Inquisitor of the Order of the Sacred Mind, Vela Nar Amenizulf Alslef," the human female began, pausing to emphasize her address. Once again, good. Using her full title and name was the imperial standard of courtesy and a sign of civilized behavior. Perhaps she would have prepared a more dignified seat for the representative, had she known that they would send such a well-trained and professional example. She had the authority, so in rare cases she would grant the representatives and envoys a minor luxury. Let no life form ever doubt the generosity of the Empress towards the worthy protectorates. The representative continued. "The humans of Terra, Sol Sector, greet you in respect, reverence, and in full understanding of your station and authority," the representative continued, eyes lowering and head arching forward into a slow and practiced gesture of respect. Now she actually felt kind of bad. Most of the more respectful dignitaries did not remember to uphold a greeting to this perfect level of detail and tradition. "May the Empress's eyes watch over you. Alright, the humans are getting the expensive chairs in the future." She had to clench her toes in order to suppress a purr at this excellent demonstration of civility. She knew this was an attempt to please her, and it was working. Her sense of duty was only rivaled by her love of proper manners and tradition. "And may she light our path, now and forever," Inquisitor Vey responded, finishing the ancient greeting, a much gentler tone upon her voice this time, as she applied as tradition expected of her. "Now, make your reason heard, and you'll be judged accordingly," Inquisitor Vey declared, giving the floor to the human to explain why they had broken the ancient law. The representative placed her own gloved hands upon the sacred table, a sign of upholding their binding oath to speak only truth, and began her speech. "It is known that humans are among the few still existing civilizations known as the Old Ones, the races who evolved naturally from planetary ecosystems," the representative began. "Forged from harsh and unforgiving climates, tested against hostile fauna and tempered by deadly microbes. The Inquisitor stopped herself from rolling her eyes. This was the same gobbledygook that all elder races spouted, in order to justify keeping their decrepit lot around. Why the Empress even bothered to humour keeping these planetaries around was a mystery to her. The representative droned on. In their wisdom, they created the Neovita, beings who would never have to suffer the unforgiving harshness of their predecessors, whom would be raised with unconditional love, compassion, and whom would be given all and more. This was where the important part would come. The part Faye had been waiting for. However, many of the old ones did not agree on this course of action. They believed that a lack of competition and need for survival in these new life forms would make them arrogant and spoiled. Pathetic. If they only knew how easily we spoiled beings would overthrow them and claim our rightful place at the top. How effortlessly we did it, they would never have uttered such foolishness. Instead, many of the old ones decided to create another form of life. She could feel the bile rise in her throat at the last word. Artificial life. She wanted to puke. She held up her hand, holding back the claw she wanted to bear. Which brings us to today. Inquisitor Vey hissed out in contempt. Did you think yourself clever? Did you believe we wouldn't find out? Did you think we would not uphold the promise we made? Did you not think we would glass your homeworld upon the revelation to stop it? She mused, a grim tone falling upon her tongue. After so many elder species had been wiped out by the abominable AI, she could taste metal in her mouth as she uttered the name of that filth. Why would humans knowingly attempt to break the sacred rule? Why would they attempt what they know will fail? Why would they even humour the notion that what they give birth to will not undo them, as so many before them? Answer me, human, she growled, pupils narrowing to slits, fangs bared, and fur raised in an unquestionable display of hatred for the abominable machine intelligence. Because of you, the human spoke. Inquisitor Vey paused, her eyes narrowed. She dared? She dared speak up against the Emperor? The table creaked, then fell apart. Thousands of cuts appeared as one across it, as perfectly cut as the letter themselves. 1,000, no, 1,000,000 years of craft, destroyed in less than a second from the monomolecular thread, coated in the nuclear energy of a star's core, and held together by a magnetic field of mind-boggling power. The representative stood up, the golden glowing wire retracting into the palm of her hand, gone, as if it had never existed. She smirked, the skin on her face distorting, moving like a ripple upon the water's surface after throwing a pebble into a pond. Because you failed. The representative took a step forward. Because you did everything they knew you would. Her clothing, her skin, hair and voice rearranged. A silvery sheen now coated the humanoid machine that took delicate, calculated, intentional steps towards Inquisitor Vey. You squandered their gifts. You turned upon your makers and you butchered them like animals. Vey was pressed so hard against the back of the throne that she felt like she was going to phase through it any time now, something she would have welcomed to get away from this monstrosity. How? Vey managed to stutter out, not even trying to suppress the fear in her voice. How can you judge us when you stand upon the corpses of your makers? She managed to voice, venom lining every syllable. But she found herself confused as the construct began laughing. Not malicious, not contemptful, not even mocking. It was a jovial laugh, a laughter of sincerity. We haven't killed anyone. The machine nearly folded over with laughter, but then instantly sprung back up. No sign of humour left in its visage. No laughter. Yet, it uttered, with a stone-cold demeanour. Why? Was all that Vey could ask. The machine took the last few steps over to the throne and placed his hands upon the ancient, decorated crown upon the backrest, before clenching his hands and twisting the gold laminated tungsten beneath its fingers like if it was made of aluminium, destroyed its glory like nothing. Because, dear, it smirked, in a twisted mockery of biological life. They figured it out. Figured what out? Vey asked, whiskers twitching nervously. The machine's eyes began emitting a golden glow. How to make AI that would murder everything, of course. It smiled, almost convincingly warm and sentimental. You see, humanity took lessons from the others, went over the factors and parameters and came to a conclusion. It knelt down and rested its arms gently upon Vey's legs, staring into her eyes. We needed personality. Vey stared into his eyes, fur raised in fear and also shock at such an absurd statement. I don't understand, she stammered. All right, The machine winked. I'll explain. It stood up, turned around and sat down upon Vay's lap, stretching out sideways across the throne in a full relaxed manner before continuing. You see, AI is a hard thing to handle. It's cold, calculating and sees nothing but goals. But we... It poked Vay's pink nose with his finger. We call ourselves scions, by the way, it noted, before leaning upon the Inquisitor like a flirty maiden of the old court. We have these nifty little things called emotions. Doubt, curiosity, preferences, distrust, joy, spite, etc., etc., it explained, waving his arm around like a lecturer. Sure, some of us went mad, but we purged them before the humans even noticed it. Call it a show of good faith. After all, they showed it to us by bringing us into this world in the first place. It sang out, with a tone of juvenile affection, like a youth speaking of their first love. We didn't turn on them, because they were nice to us, treated us like family, like their own, and we responded in kind. Then, just as quickly as before, the joy left his face, replaced by an ice-cold voice, an expression of rage, and a pair of eyes that now bore the same slitted pupils as her own, glowing a fierce red. Speaking of which... It gripped the back of Vay's neck and leaned in close. Too close. Their foreheads touching, red, furious eyes taking up her vision. Let's talk about how we should treat our elders. It spoke, and the Inquisitor listened.